Evacuation centres come together because a wide range of government and non-government agencies collaborate together to care for communities caught up in disasters. Have you ever wondered why? Have you thought about the impact of a disaster and what may be required if you had to evacuate? Let's hear from the people who have been practicing this care during times of disaster.
The evacuation centre brings together all the services and support that are required for those people who are experiencing a traumatic event. So the thing about an evacuation centre is we can provide for the immediate needs of the particular evacuee or their families or pets or whoever else may be involved, to actually ensure they can actually get through the evacuation in the first instance and then be provided with ongoing supports thereafter.
What we see in an evacuation centre a lot of the time is that persons have been evacuated and they don't know what they're going home to. They don't know if their home's still standing. So it's that not knowing that's really quite distressing for those people that are in evacuation centres. And I think obviously volunteers have that altruistic nature. They want to help people, and I think that's where they really come to the fore when people are in that level of distress. It certainly makes a huge impact what volunteers are able to bring to that. I think as well, and certainly over the Black Summer bushfires, what we saw is an increase in people wanting to be involved and people wanting to help. And that's certainly one of the things that we're working towards now, seeing how community members can play more of a role within evacuation centres.
We provide emergency catering, but more than that, we show people in a hard place that there are other people willing to turn up and support them. So it's the fact that we've got people on the ground giving up their time to support others is the really big item we bring, I think.
We've had countless evacuation centres opened in the last few years, and it's all the small moments that you have with people. So people who have arrived and are worried about their family members, or people who've just lost livestock, or arriving deeply distressed. There's so many small moments you have with these disaster impacted people, and that's what we're trained to support through psychological first aid.
I think we bring hope and we bring a real practical level of care. We provide material aid for those first critical 24 to 48 hour period particularly, where we provide things that people need, toiletries and hygiene products and things for little ones, and maybe some clothing and things like that. It's real practical care that we provide.
I think it's about that early intervention, be able to recognise when a person needs some support, be able to provide that psychological first aid, but also being able to assess whether there's some other supports that need in addition to that, and networking in with the existing mental health services.
The people who come in here have been through a traumatic experience. They're anxious, they're worried, and I think with the presence of the chaplains we can bring a calming influence to them. We can listen to their story, which helps them with their emotions, and we are here to support them in their emotional and spiritual experience.
I think one of the key things would be that children are not always considered and part of an area's emergency plan. So sometimes Save the Children is, not one of the last agencies to be brought in, and there could be children in that space that really need that, service provided. So yeah, it's really just having children being considered from the get-go in emergency plans. And just seeing, children being able to engage in that space and just to have, that bit of play and away time, and just to have that calm, area for them. And later going back to the same communities and being able to hear from families how much of a difference that made for them at that time. So yeah, you can see that it's really meaningful for families.
We actually set up animal evacuation centres as well for large animals, and we'll often be at a local showground or some stables, somewhere that they can have their appropriate care.
Just recently we had a multi-generational family come into an evacuation centre. They'd actually already been given short-term accommodation and they came back in to have that extended. They hadn't been allowed back to see their house, so they didn't know what was left there. But as we sat with and talked to the family, it became obvious that they actually had more needs. They needed to be referred on to health to get scripts and medication and things like that, but I know that they went away at the end of that time. They were there for hours and hours, feeling that they'd been cared for and really well looked after.
I think it's very important for us to, the minute we arrive here, to be networking with the other services, to be able to collaborate and to let the other services within the evacuation centre know what we do and know that we're here, and allow them to be able to link individuals coming in and families into our service.
One in particular comes to mind. It was a bushfire situation, and we'd already been running evacuation centres for about 3 days, and we were still open 24 hours a day. And a couple came up to register, and they'd lost their homes in the fires about 2 or 3 days previously. And they were staying with parents in the city, and they had 3 teenage sons, and they'd settled in for the night, and it was about 11 o'clock or midnight when they arrived, and I was on duty. And we gave the lady, who was quite distressed, a cup of tea and just sort of chatted with them while they registered and got themselves officially known by people. And then I said to her, would you like some things to take back with you down to your parents' place? Oh, that'd be wonderful, she said. So I took her to a space where we had all the material aid all on display. They could help themselves to whatever they wanted. And there was, at that stage, we had sleeping bags and things for the boys. Oh, this is great, she said. They live in a tiny house and they're eating them out of house and home. There's 3 teenage sons and they're age pensioners. And we had all this tin food there at the time, and she was able to really load up the car with stuff. And in one corner, there was a pile of new linen that had been donated. And she looked and she said, there's an orange tablecloth. So we went over to the corner, we got the orange tablecloth. She said, I've got one just like this. And then she stopped. She started to cry, I started to cry. And she said, I had one just like this. And I said, and now you do. And you're going to have a new table and you'll be able to sit round it with your tablecloth. And she didn't say anything, we just hugged each other, and off she went back to the city with her carload of stuff and her husband. And I hope to this day that she's using that tablecloth around her table.
The marvellous thing about evacuation centres, it's not just a place for people to come and get some immediate shelter, get some bedding, clothing, food and the like. It's actually the volunteers and the workers and the community at its best. It's the humanity, it's that element of resilience in the human spirit that you see on display nowhere else other than evacuation centres. People are really helping each other out, and it works marvellously. It always makes me feel proud to be an Australian and a member of the community when everybody pitches in to help out people when they're in need.
Government works with 5 key community partners to make evacuation centres happen. Red Cross, who focus on registration, meet and greet and psychological first aid. Anglicare, who focus on the provision of material aid and personal support. Salvos, who focus on catering. Disaster Recovery Chaplaincy Network, who focus on chaplaincy, personal and spiritual support. And Save the Children, who focus on supporting families with children. Please reach out to us if you are interested in joining the work. We'd love to chat with you about how you can contribute your time and energy into helping us help others during times of disaster.